the Red Shoes, the story that is, I've told many times now, but it's true, is I was a performer for many years. It was what I wanted to do and it's what I did do. But largely through a lack of success, I ended up in small fringe companies in Britain, and I did a lot of work in schools, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and performing for 7-year-olds, which I loved, absolutely loved. And also went on sort of crazy missions with fringe companies, including going over to Poland and working with Garjanica. And I then met Kneehigh and absolutely fell in love. I fell in love with Cornwall and fell in love with this band of brigands, their sort of sexy, elemental, funny craziness. And had a wonderful time with them as a performer. They really taught me how to clown, how to be funny, how to enjoy life more, as opposed to the sort of the heavy fringe work that I'd been doing, Eastern European heaviness. And basically, because the work at Kneehigh was very devised, and I'd been doing a lot of devised work, I'd been getting very involved in the process. And without realising it, I was beginning to not only put quite a lot of ideas and work into rehearsals, but when we were touring, I'd be calling rehearsals as an actor, saying, come on, we'll come in an hour early and I'll restage this scene, or we'll do something. Which I would kill one of my actors if they ever did that to one of my shows, but that's what I was doing at Kneehigh. Anyway, they said after, I was in my early 30s by that point, Mike Shepherd, who was talking to you from the stage tonight, and Bill Mitchell, who were running Kneehigh at that time, said, Emma, we think you're a director. You ought to direct a show. And I said, no, I'm a performer. I'm very happy where I am. I've just got lots of ideas I'd like to just do over there. And they said, Emma, we think you're a director. If you were to direct, what would you do? And I said, the Red Shoes. And I promise I hadn't really at that point ever thought of it. I hadn't planned it. I didn't think of myself as a creator of work. I thought that I was somebody that responded to work. So what happened at that point, as the words came out of my mouth and they said, brilliant, do it, I went to the library and I got out Powell and Pressburger's version of the Red Shoes. And I mean, was in horror. I thought, oh, what have I done? This is unstageable. This is operatic and about sea and about ballet. I thought, I'm going to have to come clean that I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. And I thought, well, just before I do that, I'll look at the Sport Fairy story, and read the Hans Christian Andersen story. And really it was possibly the turning point in my life, because it was at that moment that I realised how resonant and relevant the story was to myself at that point in my life. It was really about making choices, about what kind of a life you're going to lead, and really about what bargains you're going to make, and the cost of those bargains, whether you're going to do what other people want you to do, or whether you're going to follow a different and possibly more painful path. And the rest you've just seen on stage tonight. The only thing I feel, obviously I'm going to answer questions and see what other people want to talk about, but 10 years on, I look at the work and it's very raw and it's very brave, and I do think that it was an explosion of my psyche, really, that I had lots of years in my early 30s of thoughts and feelings and frustrations to sort of explode on stage, and I think the strength of that is very palpable, and I remain incredibly proud of it to this day. And lots of things develop in one's career as an artist. You know, you learn skill and you learn finesse and you learn all sorts of things as you go along. But what you never get more strongly is instinct. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is the raw instinct that's on stage in this show. Yeah, I feel that the Red Shoes are the perfect metaphor, I think, for many people, full stop, definitely for many women. And it is a female fairy story in its origins, but it's definitely for the attempting to be an artist and what it requires from you and the cost that it takes. I think it's absolutely an outpouring of sort of, and what I also love about it doesn't give the answers. So yeah, it doesn't give any answers. That's what I love. Is it really poses the question, it shows the cost, it really explores. Even though there's very few words in this production, it really explores what happens if you try and go on a different path, and what the progression from instinct to desire to obsession to addiction. It's a very detailed study of stages of choices through life. The key thing for any of you that have studied the fairy tale or seen other versions is every version I read of this story had her at best going into lifelong servitude, and at worst dying. And the Hans Christian Andersen one, she does both, because he was never one to pull his punches with ladies. So yeah, he made her into a slave and then took her up to heaven. And the very sort of key choice I made with it was that it wasn't a happy ending, but it was an ending. She did have a future. So I don't know what she walks off and does. I don't care whether she's a brain surgeon or a mum or a librarian, but she does have a future and she does live. And one of the lines is, I think she danced to the very gates of hell. And in many ways, she danced to the gates of hell and she danced to the gates of heaven, but she carries on living and has a future at the end.
10 years ago, it was very interesting. We went to places like China, Syria, Lebanon, and the colour red, and what the actual red shoes meant to people sort of kind of changed with each country we went to, and it was very, very powerful and at times very political, especially when we were in Beijing. The state got to hear about it and got worried about what was this kind of alternative theatre company from the UK doing dancing around in their red shoes. And 10 years ago, I think we made it with a great freedom. Emma made it with a great freedom of expression, really. And it's interesting, 10 years on, as the marketplace kind of broadens or narrows, according to the recession, is more accurate probably, how people are more nervous about the kind of freedom of pieces like the red shoes. So I'd say 10 years on, there's more pressure on it for it to be tailored to different marketplaces. So we were doing one-night stands a lot of the time, and putting the setup and taking it down and loading the roof rack of the van. So in some ways we've come a long way from that 10 years ago. But in some ways I kind of hanker a little bit more after that freedom of just creating a piece of work 10 years ago and placing it for people wherever, rather than putting it in particular marketplaces and hoping people will like it. Although St Anne's is an exception to that, because it feels well suited to the red shoes.
10 years ago, I put together the soundtrack, which was a mix of classical music and harp music that I'd written. It was recorded in a studio, and sleazy blues music and various bits and bobs. And then when we remade the show this year, we played my original music live, which was a new thing. But yeah, it's great to revisit it again. It's sort of surprising, the rhythm. A lot of it surprises me, the rhythms and the style of the music. It's kind of very different to how it's evolved over the last 10 years. I think the last couple of shows I've done have mostly been vocal-based songs, music, choral stuff. So it's evolved a lot.
Well, I know this company for 6 years now. Yeah, 6 and a bit, and this is my 5th show with them. And I have to say, I really, 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 really like it. The best company I've ever worked with. And this show, well, when Emma asked me to do the part of the soldier and the shoemaker in red shoes, and she said that's a show what we've already done. And we've done it once, 10 years ago. It was touring and went all over the world. And I was wondering, okay, and it happened to me before that I took over a role, or not just one, quite a lot. But it's always a bit, okay, how can I make it my own? How can I, what new shall I bring? And I asked them, so are you going to do exactly the same thing, or are you going to do something new? And I haven't got an exact answer. I just got an answer, we'll see. And that was more than enough for me. Yes, we'll see. Okay, very good. Can't wait to do it. And I mean, I watched the DVD. I think that was from Beijing. One of the shows was on DVD, and my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe. I just loved it, and I saw it so. Everything is has got exact place and space and time. There's not much to change. I just have to get on with it. We've got only 3 weeks anyway.
But because you can see it is quite tightly choreographed, not from the start, it's evolved as a sort of a very tight piece of storytelling, is that you do really have to give yourself up to it and then fill it with yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have brought up to it.
I'm one of the founder members of the company, Kneehigh. Mike and I are old friends going way, way back. I remember the shoes first time around. I retired at the point the Red Shoes came into being. 10 years later, I was asked to do this show, and I was incredibly excited about it. Because seeing it first time, it was such a fantastic show at that time. So it was really exciting to have the chance to come back and do something with the company.
Saying you retired makes it sound like Dave had his feet in slippers for 10 years.
Well, I am the company's graphic designer.
Yeah. That's what he's been doing.
I'm still very much involved with the company, but I retired from performing. And then Emma asked me to do a show a couple of years ago. Don John said, I've got a perfect part for you. It's a very old man who dies. I've been invited to do the Red Shoes, where I play a very old lady who died. So that's me set for the future.
Yes, well, there are bits which are kind of free, but within the very particular strict frame. You know, I don't like improvisation just for the sake of, you know, being completely free. I like borders, and borders allows you to be free actually. The bits when the suitcase comes back as a grave, and everyone kind of dance around the stage, just like the manic mama. That's a little bit free. But the rest is actually meticulously choreographed, I would say, by Emma.
I mean, yeah, in the early days, we all lived, worked, slept, played, did lots of things we shouldn't do all together, and then obviously as a company, as time goes on, people become more normal human beings and do, you know, have proper partners, or even husbands and wives, and possibly children. So things change, but there is no formula really. But I think one of the main reasons the company has kept going for 30 years is because it keeps reinventing. And although I am the person who started it, I like to think I'm not there holding these strict reins, and that I'm actually doing the opposite of that. I think all of us, there are people here that have worked together for years and years, but when you have a pool of people, you need to keep that pool aerated. So we quite deliberately look for catalysts to come and oxygenate that pool, and I think that's why it survives. But in the end, in terms of why people stay together, it's got to be to do with the work. It's got to be that kind of makes people want to come back. There's a lot talked about Cornwall, which is a fantastic place, and the barns where we work, the road ends, and then there's the coast, and there isn't any mobile phone signal. So you can become consumed by the work, and that's a special place. But that's not the reason people stay. It's got to be the work.